second portion of... Is this working? Okay. The second portion of our night, I want to turn things over to Emily Sachs, Catherine Wolf, and V. Tomzak for a few questions, and then we'll open it up to the group. So this is a good time. The note cards are out on the chairs. If you have questions, to start kind of scribbling those down. So, Catherine.
Hey everyone, my name is Catherine. I teach Math and Science at Alliance Academy over in Region 3. I just wanted to tell you how we got the questions that we're about to ask you. As Mr. Klein said, the teachers working for the GO's Effective Teacher Campaign were emailed and asked what questions we had for Superintendent Smith, and there were plenty of responses. We tried to get them for a weekend, but since we can only have one night tonight, we worked together as a team to consolidate them into the top 5 questions that embody the main ideas that came from all the different responses.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is V. Tomzak, and I'm a school teacher. So this is a two-part question. Having caring and effective teachers is one of the utmost critical areas, in our students' lives. With that in mind, what are your top priorities in terms of ensuring that all kids have effective teachers? And what are the major obstacles to achieving those goals?
So I think that first and foremost, creating a stable environment. So we know that teachers can count on being here, that it's not up and down and I just got started and I just got a notice and am I going to be back? So the fact that we send no layoff notices this year is really important part of this strategy about sending a message that teachers, you are the most valuable central part of this organization. Without you and your relationship and connection to children, we are not going to see different outcomes for kids. We're not going to see the kind of outcomes that the city needs. So for me, actually sending a message, a strong message, that I'm not going to do something I don't need to do, which is send these notices, that's one part. The other part is really talking about what is effective teaching? What does it mean? Include and invite and begin this dialogue. We started last year, but this conversation has to be much more than simply delivering on test metrics. Right? We're talking about the kind of skills and expectations that our children are going to be asked to deliver on, which many of those are social emotional. Many of those are being able to work collaboratively. A lot of the structures and processes that actually employers want later, we're doing inside the classroom. We need to be much more explicit about that. We need to have conversations with teachers where teachers are talking about what high quality practice looks like. Now, I do deeply think that children need to be able to demonstrate what they know. And so testing, if we're teaching to a test that's too narrow and doesn't actually capture genuine, authentic thinking, that's a problem. Testing kids on for an authentic request for an information, did you know this so that I can help you know it better, because you're going to be asked to know this. Many of you know I have a 3rd grader, and she has to know her times tables by the end of 3rd grade, right? And even now, she knows them, but when she's doing more advanced mathematics, she can't spend the time to add up the groups. There's some things that we need our kids to know, and I would just say we are at a place now where if we're not actually spending the time with teachers talking about what effective practice is, using data to inform that practice, we're missing it. We have some schools in Oakland that are extraordinary, that do this, that actually teachers bring their data. They're talking about, I designed this lesson, I completely nailed it for this group of kids. These kids didn't get it at all. Help me understand that. So teachers are bringing their student work and talking about that. They're using test score performance, they got their data walls, teachers are leading that PD. I think we got examples to build on in Oakland, we just need to build from those. So, sending the message to teachers that you are essential and valuable, and we're going to keep you to the highest degree possible, not send notices. We're going to actually talk about what our kids really need to know and engage in that conversation together and learn from and support those structures that are already working. And those are the 3 kind of big ideas.
I guess my question sort of covers that same area. Maybe you can speak speak to something besides the layoff notices, which is awesome, by the way, because OUSD has an unacceptably high rate of teacher attrition that interferes with student achievement. What can OUSD and the community do to keep more of our talented teachers and provide additional stability for the students?
So back to the full-service community schools. So some folks, when I started talking about this, said, God, this community guy doesn't care anything about the classroom. And I kind of had to reframe that conversation that first, foremost, and always, schools have to be about the relationship between the teacher and student, about developing content knowledge of young people, about that exchange, about building the capacity of kids to do real work that matters to them. And there's just no way possible that we're going to be able to meet all the needs of all the kids if teachers have to do all of that work about handling the post-traumatic stress, about dealing with all the stuff that's going on in the city. So we started talking about the kinds of wraparound services, talking about the social and emotional needs of young people. A full-service community school, quite frankly, is what middle and high-income families have already. The kind of supports necessary for their kids to come to school, quote, ready to learn. So the creation of this full-service set of connectivity to the city, to municipality, to the housing authority, all these other partnerships are about ensuring that folks stay. Because the conversations I have, people are like, I'm doing everything I can. I can't keep doing it, man. I've given everything I got to take a break. So we're trying to get additional support. Clearly, there's also pay. I mean, there have been 2 parcel taxes, one that I wasn't here for, but the last one we missed by 440 no votes that would have had considerable more compensation. We've got to get more compensation for teachers, period. And another part of why we got to get stable so we know actually new revenue should go directly to employees. And that has to be, we have to make that, it is one of the board's top priorities. So increasing compensation and increasing support for children outside the classroom so that they can actually take full advantage of that exchange inside.
Hi. So I think a lot of the people in the room here are concerned about what they may have heard or not heard about the accelerated teacher on special assignment positions that are being implemented at the high school level. So can you help us understand how the use of TSAs at high schools will benefit students and how the process will develop?
Yeah, so in the strategic plan, we talked about the acceleration schools. And part of the acceleration, I've gotten some feedback like, hey, it should be about deeper learning. Why are we talking about acceleration? Because by the time kids are 18, there's a certain set of requirements in the world. And right now we got a whole bunch of kids who are really far away from meeting a kind of standard and expectation about how to both participate in the world of work, about finishing high school. And when you look at the kind of earning over a lifetime of young people who don't finish high school, and even if they barely finish, we are setting our kids up for failure, and we have a limited amount of time. So the word acceleration doesn't then strip away deeper quality learning. It's connected and linked learning. I mean, we got to have them doing things that really matter, but they got to do more faster. And quite frankly, folks, if you're uncomfortable with the notion of acceleration, I want to have a longer conversation with you. Because when you're sitting with these young people, we have kids who are desperate to be engaged in the world. They want to be employed. They want to have a positive life. And we've got to help them get there. And in these 3 particular high schools, we got to go a hell of a lot faster. Because that 55% graduation rate I told you about is actually much lower at these 3 schools. So the notion of acceleration for me is pretty straightforward, and it's embedded in the strategic plan. So again, I go back to, some folks have kind of said, well, there's bargaining, and I just want to remind people that the power of the school board is that they set the content of that's why they're elected. So when they pass the strategic plan, that strategic plan is the content of the work of Oakland. That's not negotiating. That's the board saying, this is who we are and what we're about. And they approve that unanimously. So the content of that is guiding my work and my decision making. And I actually fully agree with and abide by the contract, the OEA contract we have. The teacher on special assignment is in the contract It's negotiated language, and after quite a bit of conversation about trying to figure out how to handle both the closing schools, the high schools. So on 2 of these campuses, there are 3 schools becoming 1. So everybody on those campuses would have been going through a process anyway, and we have a number of other elementary schools that close. So we're talking about a process that actually, it's very common in other places outside of school districts where people kind of apply and try to fit into a job. Like, I bring these sets of skills, this is the focus and purpose of this place, I would fit here and work here. That's a fairly normal process. It's not typical in school districts. So we were trying to actually get to that kind of agreement, and it actually ended up not working. So we kind of ended up with an advisory match process. But I then decided that's not good enough for these high schools. And we need actually longer, and we need teachers paid for that time, and we need a structure that is consistent and expected and common across these 3 high schools. And by contract language, I can use the teacher on special assignment. And so I made the decision to basically implement the teacher on special assignment at these 3 schools. And so teachers will be paid more, they'll have time to collaborate and work together, and now have a common job description that will basically guide the work of that school, and families will know and understand and expect what's going on there.
Thank you.
What is being done to improve the evaluation system, the teacher evaluation process, to ensure that teachers are being supported to develop and maintain their effectiveness?
So there's a lot in this question. So first, let's start from the fact that I don't think teachers get very good feedback. I don't think that the way it's structured currently, there's time is a really limiting factor in terms of really having a positive structure to give and receive feedback. It's also very tough. I don't know if you've been in a situation where you're both supposed to supervise and coach somebody simultaneously. Sometimes that's really difficult. If you're giving somebody a piece of coaching feedback, but then somebody's thinking, if I don't do it exactly like that, is it a knock against me? So there's a tension in this relationship anyway. And I think the evaluation, the way it's currently framed, is pretty inadequate. So there are different processes underway in terms of engagement about the evaluation system, the structures. But I also think we've got to talk much more honestly and explicitly about what would it look like to have peer evaluation. It's not just about the frame, it's about the entire idea of how do we get the kind of feedback we need to improve our practice. And I will say again, there are places in this city, in this school district right now, that are doing this, where teachers walk through in pairs, they're rotating, they're getting stuff. I mean, there's infrastructure. Now, I will tell you that that's not publicized, and that's, there are things where it's on the under. We got to make that on the upper. We got to make that what's out, and then design around that. Because, obviously, there's concern about, will it be punitive, will it be arbitrary, how will we know? We got to make it much more clear what we're actually looking for. But I would also say, connected to this, we haven't clarified what we want our kids to know and be able to do when they leave. I would say as a city, but also as a school district. We haven't been very clear about what should every kid know when they leave us, and how are we organizing teaching pre-K-12 to support them. So we have some big things outside of, quote, the evaluation that aren't in place, that keep us having, I think, a very unproductive conversation about, is that teacher good enough? Are they not? Is it about the evaluation? So, I think this binary, this reform language, we have a chance to actually get past a lot of that stuff by rethinking what we even mean by teacher evaluation. It should include a heck of a lot of coaching and support towards what we say effective teaching looks like. That's why I also would say, a lot of times people write effective teacher. I think it's more about effective teaching, because teachers look very different doing their practice and their craft. That said, there are some things that should be common across that. So the conversation for me should be about effective teaching all the time. sometimes people get lazy in their language, say effective teacher. I think we've got to stay there and then build effective teaching capacity of everybody.
So I'm actually the Oakland Education Association representative at my school. And I understand that the relationships between the OEA and the district are strained at this point. How can OUSD and the OEA overcome their history to work together in the best interests of children?
Huge question. I'm not dodging it. But I think this is much bigger. I mean, is this the relationship the city of Oakland wants? I mean, is this satisfying Oakland? Is this what people expect for the well-being and care and concern for their children, to have this as the political environment? Is this the kind of organizing that we want around our kids when stuff's plastered and this is what you should do? And I mean, this is the kind of feeling that actually starts to seep into the schools, this tension. I don't think it's what Oakland wants. And for me, personally, I mean, I've been really clear with everybody in this room who's executive board members, leadership. I mean, to say that it's a corporate agenda and to use these tropes and this language that's so incendiary continues a dialogue that's not about humanity. To propagandize is to dehumanize, right? And I think we got to stay in authentic, genuine conversation without using this wild rhetoric that's totally unfounded. And use evidence to talk about change. And I just think the larger context, and I would ask folks in the community, I would ask business, I would ask all of us to engage in this conversation. This is not just, superintendent, what do you think? There's just no possible way I can resolve all of this, right? I mean, I am an Oaklander, I have children here, I have friends and relationships, and long relationships and networks. But I'm insufficient to do this. This is fundamentally a question about our desire as a city for the healthy conditions our children need, and the entire thing has to get changed. Because it works for some people right now to continue behaving the way it is. And I just think that's a real problem because it's not working for kids.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I know that we all really appreciate it, and I think that we're going to open it up for more questions from the audience at this point.
Great.
So,